Hey, this podcast holds nothing sacred. This is Life, Tech, and Sundry. And what is Sundry? It's our experiences put in a melting pot to the internet. So join us on this wild ride called the LTS Podcast. Follow us at LT Sundry on Twitter, LTS.pod on Instagram, Life, Tech, and Sundry on YouTube, and all your favorite podcast distribution services. Stay frosty.
Welcome back, dear listener, to this episode of LTS Out of Office. And now, your host, Marcos Lopez. Salutations there. Hopefully, your flight goes well wherever you are. Let's talk about the most complex, high-stakes ballet you've never seen, happening miles above your head. Today, we're exploring the intricate, unseen choreography that keeps thousands of multi-ton metal tubes from spontaneously redecorating the landscape. Talking about air traffic control. We're diving into the critical yet precariously strained infrastructure that has recently been catapulted from obscurity into the public consciousness, which, as we know, is usually where things go right before the congressional hearings start. This isn't just about the nation's economic linchpin. It's about the very tangible reason your flight to Cancun doesn't accidentally begin its descent over Kansas. But putting the script aside for just a moment, can I just be real with you? This topic has been weighing on my mind a lot lately. The more I looked into it, the more I couldn't shake this deep sense of unease, if you will. The whole system we just trust implicitly feels so more fragile than any of us could imagine. It's like the whole operation is, as I would say, my notes, let me check my notes. Flying by the seats of their pants from the 1990s era. It's a genuinely gloomy picture when you really look at the core problems, starting with a little bit of a backstory. How it all took off, pun intended. To understand the system's current stress, you have to see its roots. It didn't start with supercomputers. It started with a guy in a field and some flags, mind you. This reminds me of the Forestry Service and how they used to communicate with flags. I feel like it transferred to air traffic control, to its very first guy. Who? The OG controller and his flags. Back in 1929, the very first air traffic controller, Archie League, literally stood on an airfield in St. Louis with flags to direct planes, biplanes by the way. He was essentially playing a real-life game of Frogger with big planes instead of amphibians. From there, we go to a tower and a prayer. A year later, in 1930, Cleveland got the first radio-equipped tower. But for decades after, the system was a messy, unregulated patchwork of local rules. Like a cinematic universe before Marvel figured out you needed a coherent plan. The Wild West, if you will. From there, we go to from chaos and agency. It took a tragic mid-air collision over the Grand Canyon on June 30th, 1956 to finally force the government's hand. That disaster prompted the creation of the FAA, which was basically the shield of aviation, created to impose order on the chaos, building the system one crisis at a time. From those humble beginnings, a series of crucial, often reactive innovations shaped the modern system. There's a saying that aviation, specifically its regulation, is made written with blood, if you will, because it is to react after a tragic accident. I know you and I, we've flown after 9/11. Not many have flown before 9/11, in the United States at least. Probably that are listening to me, but I feel like I was lucky that I did. I flew in 1999 out of country. Not that many metal detectors back, obviously. So, with this reactionary mindset, we start with connecting the dots, the 1930s. The first airway traffic control center were created by airlines, aka private companies, in the late 1935 to manage traffic between cities. For the first time, someone was tracking the whole flight using maps and blackboards, like they were plotting out a game of D&D, or, if you want, a season of the Game of Thrones. For everyone out there that has watched it, Game of Thrones, or your favorite show. And then we have a radar revolution, starting in the 1940s to the 1950s. The adoption of surplus military radars after World War II was a complete game changer, with the first experimental system installed in 1946. It was the equivalent of giving the entire airline industry the Marauder's map from Harry Potter, letting them see electronically what was previously invisible. The Grand Canyon wake-up call. 1956. The aforementioned Grand Canyon collision was the system's breaking point. It was the red wedding moment for early aviation rules, a horrifying public demonstration that old ways were obsolete. With that, we have the feds taking the stick. 1958. In direct response to the crash, the Federal Aviation Agency, FAA, was born in August 1958. This put all domestic airspace under a single authority, essentially hitting Control-Alt-Delete on old patchwork rules and installing a new operating system. I'd say for the better, but it literally took the lives of people in order to enact that change. The PATCO strike upheaval, 1981. On August 5th, 1981, when President Reagan fired over 11,000 striking controllers, it was like a TV show firing its entire main cast and recasting overnight, a seismic event that forced a massive modernization push. People were unhappy, probably rightfully so, but the president said, nope, you're all fired. And now, red flags on the radar. So all that history has led us to the present moment, and how iconic it is that the legacy of that reactive past is now colliding with modern pressures, where the latest technology is often from the 1990s through the 2010s, putting some truly concerning issues on the screen. Guess what happens throughout those 30 years? 2000, basically 20 years? All those 20 years. What happens? Well, the incredible shrinking staff. The heart of it is a severe deficit of controllers. Wondering from where? I think there must have been a big firing, right? 1981, by the way. Recent reports confirm that critical facilities like the ones guiding the cheerful chaos over New York are still operating well below 70% of their staffing targets. It's giving less elite professionals and more season 2 of The Bear, with that level of constant heart-pounding stress, getting a little too close for comfort. And because they're so overworked, NTSB and FAA reports through 2024 and 2025 have highlighted a disconcerting escalation in near-miss incidents. We've all heard them. Unfortunately, we've also heard collisions. Rest in peace for all of them. We're basically living out the climax of a Mission Impossible movie multiple times a day. And nobody even knows it. An ode to an antiquated tech. The technology they're using to prevent all this. It's basically a museum piece. We're carrying around supercomputers in our pockets while they're using hardware and software with foundations from decades ago. It's like trying to run a modern open-world video game on a Commodore 64. The system is just not built for the mission chief. Now, to be fair, there is an important nuance here. We have to acknowledge the life cycle of highly specialized aviation equipment. You can't compare the avionics in these aircraft to our smartphones. This gear is built and certified for extreme reliability over decades, whereas your phone is practically designed to be replaced every couple of years. Major maintenance schedules for aircraft are based on flight hours and cycles, while daily pre- and post-flight checks are routine. The really deep preventative maintenance, known as heavy checks, happens in intervals that can range from 4,000 to 6,000 flight hours, where systems are thoroughly inspected and serviced. This is on the airplane side. Hopefully, you think that air traffic controllers and their systems, all those things hopefully go through the same thing. You'd hope. That's what I know on the airline side, on the airplane side, because I studied aeronautical engineering and mechanical engineering, so I studied a lot of these. A glimmer on the radar. So yes, these systems are built to last, but that doesn't make it any less unsettling to think about how much we've let the rest of this vital system decay. After an eternity of strongly worded memos, it finally feels like people are waking up and taking real action. Look, a budget! First, Congress approved a landmark infrastructure bill directing $25 billion to our airports, including a critical $5 billion chunk just for the FAA's facilities and equipment. That's not just fix-it money. That's more like Tony Stark building a new Iron Man suit level of investment to solve a problem. And then you have the next gen gets a caffeine shot. They're finally expediting the next gen program, which will shift the system to a more precise satellite-based one. It's like the entire system is finally getting its iOS update. Mind you, they're running on iPhones. That'd be funny or horrifying. I don't know. Choice is yours. Android all the way. After being stuck on the original software for 15 years, unclogging the pipeline. Quick, get the plumber! And they're also making a real push to re-engineer their recruitment and training process with stated goals to hire thousands of new controllers through 2025. They're essentially trying to fix the server lag on a massive multiplayer game that everyone is forced to play. And so, what is the final verdict? Our air traffic control system is that brilliant but perpetually stressed out friend we all have, who's juggling way too much. The recent close calls is a sobering reminder that gravity is a scientific principle we'd rather not test at 30,000 feet. But with a potent combination of real funding, long overdue tech upgrades, and a new focus on its people in air traffic and pilot jargons, it's called a vector. There's a viable vector out of this mess. The engines of change are finally spooling up, and for once, there are no delays on this departure. And with that, I'm your host, Marcos Lopez. As this episode comes in for a landing, I need you to squawk your approval by hitting the like button and following us for clearance on our next departure. And if you enjoyed the flight, please share it with a friend. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you for joining me. Fly safe.